Wow, our next guest has been advocating for an Iran free from Islamic rule all his life and has a message for President Trump on what to do next. The exiled Crown Prince of Iran, Reza Pahlavi, joins us now. Prince, great to talk to you. Your thoughts about Iran's condition and the president's goals.
In order to achieve a viable scenario for lasting peace, you have to make sure that you are allied with the right partners, as opposed to have to deal for those who stand against peace. Only peacemakers can bring peace. Warmongers will never do. The problem you have with the regime in its nature, that it has always been hostile. It has been aggressive to all the values that the Western world represents. In fact, it wants to export an ideology at the expense of its own people, using proxies like Hamas or Hezbollah, allying with an axis of resistance with Syria against, again, that momentum. And if President Trump, and that's the message I have sent in different ways to, especially today in the new administration, would like to achieve that, I think he needs to recognize the fact that in order to build on that policy, it's not just a matter of weakening a regime, which of course is important, but it's not necessarily a solution. This regime will never commit to peace. However, a secular democratic Iran with a government that represents the aspiration of its people who have no qualms or arguments or antagonism towards the Jewish state, the Israelis, the Arabs, or anything like that, that's what can forge lasting peace that will lead to a completely different outlook and scenario than the one we are facing right now with the presence of the regime in Tehran.
Roughly, how many people are you in touch with inside Iran right now?
Well, fortunately, the advent of social media had made it even more possible for us to have a much greater reach in terms of reaching our compatriots. And the dialogue is back and forth. And of course, I think people like Elon Musk, who was very helpful in bringing in Starlink so that Iranians are not disconnected from the rest of the world and would have access to internet to get first and foremost information.
And what I'm getting
at, communicate among themselves.
Right. What I'm getting at is you told me in the break that this is the most weakened state of the regime in 40 years. And you're not just hoping, you believe you have facts to back that up. How would we know this?
Look, you are beginning to see signs of defections from within the regime that is cracking up. You are beginning to see elements who used to belong to the reformist camp that were still trying to push change from within through reforms that don't believe in that anymore, who are today on a convergence path with those of us who from the very beginning have been advocating that an Islamic ruling system is not an answer to Iran's future. But also the fact that demonstrations in Iran, people's protests, the way they organize themselves, the messages they send to the outside world clearly indicates that they chant death to the dictator, down with this regime. The nation is ready, the regime is weak. The element that we need, however, is much more support, not just outside pressure, which is important, but it will not ultimately lead to a regime collapse, coupled with maximum support. Then you will see maximum defection will facilitate the transition. That's what we need to work together on in order to make Iran great again, as Mr. President Trump wants to make America great again. We're just separated by one letter. We say MIGA, he says MAGA. That's our goal.
I understood. Right. And if you just take out a map, Hamas diminished, Hezbollah almost destroyed, Assad in Russia, they lost 3 major allies. And who knows if Iraq, how long they'll be subjected to Iran's dominance. The other big story is we're watching the slow release of Israeli hostages and some American hostages. Yesterday was different. We got 4 caskets. One of the bodies was not even the young mom they told us it was, Shiri Bibas, and the 2 children dead, not from bombs from Israel, but according to Mike Waltz last night, they were killed by Hamas. What does the message send now within the Middle East? What message is that to the IDF? What should Israel be taking away from this?
Well, if you want to go to the root cause, in other words, rather than focus on the tree, if we were beginning to see the forest, we will see that the ultimate reason for all these tragedies, human losses, and my heart goes out to both sides, Palestinians, Israelis, that should not have been caught in this kind of conflict to begin with, had it not been as a result of a regime in Tehran that has been all the time moving all these tentacles across the world. We've been for 40 years dispatching fire trucks to put out these fires, but never have we gone after the arsonist. The eye of the octopus has been in Tehran, and I've been saying it from day one. The world needs to catch up with the reality that to put an end to all of these threats, whether it is funding proxy groups, with Houthis in Yemen, of course Hezbollah and Hamas, the regime's funding of terrorist organization, the regime's flowing money through their so-called, religious centers to fund movements that are, promoting anti-Semitism, all the way to American universities. As a result of October 7, we saw that. None of this will ultimately resolve the problem if we are just stuck on the issue of how do we recover hostages and how do we recover this and that. We have to look beyond that.
And I'm sure Bibi Netanyahu knows that better than anyone, and they've never been more vulnerable. The missile defense has been destroyed, and their Hezbollah, Hamas bodyguards have been diminished. Thanks so much, Prince. Great to talk to you. Hopefully one day you'll be back in your country. All right.
Well, I cannot wait soon enough to help my compatriots free themselves. Thank you for the opportunity, guys.
You got